Would you want to be working for a luxury watch boutique right now in America? I've decided to interrupt my normal weekly upload schedule just in light of last week's announcements by Trump, just to give my thoughts on the outlook for the watch market. At the start of last year, at the end of 2023, I did a couple of videos about why I thought the luxury market for watches would crash, and that was before any of the last month's turmoil. Now, those videos were based purely on the way I saw things going. For those of you who don't know, I am a semi-retired financial advisor. I used to have a real keen interest in markets, booms and busts. I've been through 4 in my lifetime. Each one has been extremely educational. There was the 1989-1990 boom and bust that affected property prices here as well as the stock market in the UK. Then there was the tech boom, which is more recent history, the tech boom, dot-com shares, 99-2000, another very educational time. Great financial crisis, 2008, fueled by ridiculously lax bank lending. So trust yourself, don't trust huge institutions. The banks, greedy. Anyway, that was 2008, 2009. Great time to invest in the stock market, by the way, as most American investors will know, because the 15 years after 2009 were boom times. Very unlikely to be repeated in our lifetimes. We then had COVID, which was a sharp shock to the system. Again, huge amounts of debt-fueled cash injected into the economies, pushed the prices of all sorts of things up. That's why we were left for a couple of years with residual inflation. And if you remember, you should remember, it's only 2 or 3 years ago, we had labour shortages because there was such a rush, a huge cash capital injection into the world economy that consumers, the demand was outstripping supply. The demand for labour shot through the roof. Companies were finding it hard to hire. Wages were going up so people could jump around from job to job to find the best deal for them. Well, all of that's completely changed in the last year. It was already changing, and last week's announcents on tariffs, I believe, puts an end to possibly what we have come to know in the world order since the Second World War. Really, time for a change, time to rethink. Famous quote, those who survive and thrive aren't necessarily the strongest or the fittest, but those who can adapt the best to change. And we are going through changing times. Who knows if the tariff situation will reverse and deals will be negotiated? I'm sure they will. Regardless of that, I think to a certain extent a lot of damage has already been done. Will we ever trust the US again? Will they remain the dominant superpower in the world going forward next 20, 30 years? And also basic respect from the rest of the world for America and American consumers, bless them. 80% of my audience are American, and I'm sure that applies to a lot of YouTube channels. Personally, I wonder, I don't know, otherwise I'd be a billionaire. I wonder though if, from my point of view, trust in the American markets, America as an ally going forward, that has been certainly shaken. And what will that mean going forward? Well, I suspect the rest of the world won't just stand still and beg from America. I think what should happen, and what there's a lot of very clever people in the world who organise things. I think world trade will find ways to trade. The countries will find ways to trade with each other. Don't forget that these tariffs apply to imports to the United States. They don't apply to trade between Canada, the UK, Australia, China, European Union. They will have their own trade arrangements. Oh, by the way, can you just if you like these videos, can you just subscribe and like and share the videos? It takes a few seconds, costs nothing, but it does help the channel. Thanks. So what does that mean for the luxury watch market, or the watch market in general? I am looking at Watches of Switzerland share price for the month. It's down 30%, 29.5% for the month. Over the last 5 years, the share price went up to 1,500 pence, Great British pence. This is in pence. It's now down to 343. So it went from roughly £15 at the peak, which was the back end of 2021. It's fallen ever since. It's now at £3.43 as of today, which is the 7th of April. That's Watches of Switzerland. Now, what would you do? What would you do if you were the chief executive of Watches of Switzerland? What you would be doing. Now, I know that sales are very low. I've walked into a couple of boutiques here in my local city. Every time they've been empty. I sat down and tried on a couple of Panerais. I wasn't really wasting anybody's time because he was very bored, the sales fella in there. And within 10 minutes, he was offering me a 10% discount. That was before April. I'm just focusing on Watches of Switzerland because they are the largest. I'm going to go onto their annual report, and what I want to have a look at is how much of their business comes from the US, because the prices of those watches have just gone up over 30%. Okay, I'm just looking at the Watches of Switzerland Group website, and they're talking about various markets. The UK is the 5th largest market in the world for Swiss luxury watches. I can't see how that would change straight away. But the US market overtook China in 2021 to become the largest global market for Swiss watch exports. So the US is by far the largest. It's led by the big brands Rolex, Cartier, Patek Philippe, Omega, Tudor. Before this year, they were also in the process of consolidating larger showroom formats in major shopping centres. Right, huge retail investment from the Watches of Switzerland Group. So jumping onto the tail end of a boom, basically investing, borrowing, building at the top of a market. So what would you do if this was your business, Watches of Switzerland, or if you had a watch boutique? What would you do? The American customer not only is going to be hit by possibly a 30% tariff increase in the cost of their watches from abroad, but also if the world loses faith in the dollar. It's already started from a high level. And don't forget, America has been booming for at least 15 years, overtaking everything else. A huge imbalance in the world. If we start reverting back to the mean, even somewhat, and the dollar declines, I think luxury Swiss watch imports into America could be seriously affected. There is also another difference between the US consumer in particular compared to almost every other consumer in the world, and that is that America's wealth effect. The Americans are hugely invested in the stock market. Here in the UK, I was surprised to learn recently that only 10% of I was surprised because I was involved in this area as a career, but only 10% of UK citizens are really invested in the stock market. They will be through their pensions, but let's say they don't view that as investment in the stock market. 10%. In America, it's closer to 50 or 60%. of households invested in the stock market. So in the UK, it's always been property. If property prices go down, we all, but in America, if the stock market goes down, it affects households much more than it would here in the UK. So you've got the combination of the tariff for American consumers, 30%. You've got the decline in the dollar, which could be, who knows. And you've also got the wealth effect, where the stock markets have fallen 10, 15% in the last month, 2 months. All of those things will converge on the US as a market for luxury watches. So what about the rest of the world? Well, there will be a decline. There has to be. All economies are going to suffer in this climate. Other countries can trade with each other with minimal tariffs if they want to. So that trade can continue. But a huge amount of demand will go from the market, the watch market. There could be some perverse consequences. The values of some pre-owned watches could increase as fewer people buy retail, and there could also be, but there could be some price drops as the larger groups like Watches of Switzerland and AliExpress, the Chinese manufacturers, they may see a huge reduction in the demand from America, so they may dump their products on the rest of the world. An oversupply can lead to price drops. So all in all, everything is pointing to huge price drops. If you didn't get them last year, you'll certainly get them this year. They are my thoughts. Please leave your comments. There's a lot going on at the minute.